You're not paying a bill. You're proving what you believe about money, about supply, and about your relationship to law. Every time you transfer money, you are giving a spiritual testimony. The words you speak in that moment, whether whispered, mumbled, or simply felt, carry more weight than the amount you're paying, because the law does not respond to the number. It responds to the decree underneath it. Florence never told you to be careful with money. She told you to be lawful. She wrote, "Fear is man's only adversary." And that fear shows up most clearly in the moment of giving. When you pay a bill with a sigh, you are not simply handling responsibility. You are making a legal statement in the courts of the unseen. That statement either invokes the law of circulation or cancels it. It either aligns you with divine flow or disqualifies you from it. Most people don't realize this. They assume paying is a neutral act. It is not. There is no neutrality in law. You are either commanding through faith or collapsing under fear. You weren't taught this. You were taught to react, to grimace at the total, to shrink as you hand over the card, to double-check your account like a prisoner checking rations. You were trained to see payment as loss. You were not trained to speak as a spiritual citizen. But I am telling you now, until you break this reaction, your supply will not recognize you as its rightful steward. Every transaction carries a tone. It's not about money, it's about jurisdiction. The way you speak during a payment determines whether you are obeying law or obeying fear. And most people, even the spiritual ones, pay with obedience to fear. They don't say it aloud, but the subconscious hears everything. This is too much. I can't afford this again. Money just disappears. These sentences aren't just thoughts. They are commands. They are subconscious agreements. They are spiritual signatures that either authorize lack or override it. Let me be clear. The moment you say, "This bill is draining me," you are not describing a feeling. You are activating a covenant. You are telling the law that you are not the master of your supply. You are the victim of it. And the law, being perfectly obedient, responds in kind. It reduces, it retracts, it obeys the last command you gave it. And sadly, most people have been commanding retreat with every monthly bill, every rent cycle, every swipe of the card. Florence wrote, "Man must prepare for the thing he has asked for, when there isn't the slightest sign of it in sight. That includes how you speak when the rent is due. That includes how you breathe when the bill hits your inbox. That includes what you mutter under your breath as you click Pay Now." Most people prepare for wealth by saving in fear, by spending in guilt, and by releasing money as if they are being robbed, then wonder why abundance feels like a thief that never comes. Here's what I need you to understand. Your payments are not obligations. They are offerings. They are declarations. They are ritual affirmations of whether or not you trust divine circulation. When you pay with fear, you say to the universe, "I am not connected." When you pay with reverence, with composure, with spiritual legality, you say, "I am a vessel through which all good flows." And money listens, not to the app, not to the card, but to the authority behind the action. So I will say it plainly. You don't fear the bill. You fear your supply. You don't fear what's due. You fear it won't return. You fear that giving it now will silence the law later. You believe in some deep inherited place that there might not be more, that there might be a limit, that your provision is conditional, and that your payment today could jeopardize your protection tomorrow. But none of that is true. That is the voice of disobedience whispering through financial ritual. That is ancestral hypnosis, rehearsed again and again until it sounds like wisdom. It is not. It is spiritual sabotage cloaked as caution. The law of circulation is exact. It does not move because you are good, it moves because you are lawful. It does not respond to effort, it responds to alignment. Florence wrote, "Faith is expecting the thing you want even when you do not see it." So the only question that matters when you pay anything is, do you speak as if the law still stands? Or do you speak as if you're alone in the system? The next time you pay, notice what you say. Do not analyze it, just observe it. And then ask yourself, did I just authorize wealth or revoke it? Did I reinforce my sovereignty or re-sign the agreement with fear? This is not a game of budgeting. This is the spiritual court of jurisdiction. Your voice is on trial every time you give. Speak accordingly. Florence didn't teach you to beg. She didn't teach you to apologize for what you owe. She taught you to declare, before you release a single dollar, I do not pay in fear. I pay in faith. I pay under grace, and I am never depleted. That is not an affirmation. That is spiritual governance. And until your voice carries that weight, your wallet will not obey. Because money doesn't follow emotion, it follows command. I never told you to be cautious with money. I told you to be consecrated in spirit. I never taught you to hesitate before paying. I taught you to prepare for the unseen by acting as though it were already here. The law of circulation does not respond to your spreadsheet. It responds to your sentence. It doesn't measure the amount. It measures the authority you carry when you release it, and fear will always void that authority. You think fear protects you. You think it makes you wise, sober, financially responsible. But spiritually, fear doesn't make you cautious. It makes you disobedient. The law of circulation is exact. You give and it flows. You release and it returns. But only when the channel is clear. And fear, even if silent, is a spiritual contaminant. It slows down what should move instantly. It clogs what was designed to be free-flowing. It binds what should be circulating with the command, do not return. You may think your voice is neutral, that paying a bill is just paying a bill, that budgeting carefully is virtuous. But I have never spoken to your budgeting. I have always spoken to your belief. If you believe that supply is scarce, then every payment will trigger pain. And that pain, spoken or not, becomes a message, a legal one. When you pay and think this is too much, you're not commenting on the price. You're defining your threshold. You're telling the law, that is my ceiling. That's as far as I'm willing to believe. And the law, being perfectly obedient, builds a wall at that line. You were not born afraid to pay. You were trained to equate giving with depletion, trained to see bills as punishment instead of proof of capacity, trained to flinch when supply flows outward as if it wouldn't know how to return. And that training became a spell, a ritual you perform every month, every payment cycle, without even knowing you're invoking poverty. Let me tell you what I see when you pay in fear. I see a person who says, I trust the number more than the law. I see a soul who obeys anxiety more than obedience itself. I see someone who forgot that money is not a god and bills are not threats. They are mirrors. They reflect how you speak, how you breathe, how you declare. That's why no payment is ever neutral. It is a stage, a courtroom, a sacred moment in which your words either open the floodgates or bolt them shut. Do you know what most people actually say when they pay? Not out loud, but in tone, in frequency, in thought. They say, This hurts. This shouldn't cost this much. I'm so tired of always owing. And I'll tell you what the law hears instead. Block her flow. Shut the gates. She's not ready. You may believe you're paying something off, but your tone is paying something forward, a consequence, because every payment spoken in fear commissions delay, and every delay makes you doubt, not because the law failed, but because you never sealed it with truth. There is no such thing as paying with wisdom if it's laced with worry. The law does not analyze your emotions, it only enforces your tone. And fear has a tone, even in silence, even when buried under politeness and positive thinking. Fear always leaks through. It leaks through in the way your fingers tighten before confirming the transfer, in the way your breath shortens, in the way your shoulders slump. You may call that stress. I call it a speech. And you just gave the law one more reason to pause your provision. So I say this to you now. If you want to flow in the realm of unseen wealth, you must divorce fear from your finances. You must break the contract that says, I must feel bad when I give. That is not humility. That is spiritual sabotage. You are not noble because you suffer when you spend. You are not holy because you shrink in responsibility. You are lawful when you speak with alignment, and that alignment must be present while you pay, not just when you affirm. I have heard too many say, I believe in divine supply in the morning, and say, I'm afraid I'll be short this month by noon. That's not faith. That's split jurisdiction, and the law does not obey divided command. If you still fear paying, then you have not yet understood the true nature of giving. You still see it as subtraction. I told you, circulation is not loss. It is legal movement. It is the proof that your supply is alive, moving, responsive. When you give in fear, you freeze it. You hold it hostage. And the law respecting your voice does exactly what you told it to. It stops flowing, not because the channel broke, but because the captain gave an unclear order. You cannot bless what you resent. You cannot multiply what you curse. And you cannot call forth abundance while treating every bill as a threat. I will keep telling you until your blood remembers it. You don't pay to get rid of something. You pay to command something. Your payment is a declaration, and the voice behind it determines everything that follows. So check your voice, not just your budget. Check your posture, not just your payment plan. Check the altar you're standing on every time you transfer money, because that altar is real, and what you say upon it becomes law. You weren't born afraid of money. You weren't born flinching at the sound of due date or lowering your voice when speaking about your bank account. That trembling didn't come from heaven. It came from training, from repetition, from voices that were not law but wore the mask of love, authority, culture, and tradition. The fear you feel when paying a bill is not natural. It is inherited. And until you name the voices that planted it, you will keep watering the curse with every act of obedience. Ask yourself, who first taught you that the arrival of a bill meant the arrival of stress? Who first sighed in front of you as they opened the electric statement? Who said money doesn't grow on trees while they ripped open an envelope with trembling hands? Who used phrases like, I'm drowning in bills, or we barely made rent again, and expected you to absorb those words as realism? And more importantly, when did you stop questioning that? When did you begin to adopt their fear as wisdom? When did you start thinking that spiritual maturity meant financial anxiety? Let me be clear, fear of payment is not maturity. It is memory. It is the echo of a house where fear was currency. It is the residue of systems where survival was mistaken for stewardship. It is the child in you, still rehearsing the lines of your parents, your church, your community. They didn't mean to curse you, but they did. Every time they dramatized the act of paying, every time they tightened their face at the checkout line, every time they made a joke about being broke, but told it like a prophecy. That was a sermon, and you as a child listened like it was gospel. And then you grew up, you got your own job, your own wallet, your own bills, but the sermons didn't stop. They just moved inside. Now you preach to yourself, I have to be careful. I hope this goes through. This bill again. You speak as they did, but you call it adulthood. It is not. It is echo. Echo is not command. An echo cannot change law. It only repeats patterns. So I ask you again, who taught you that giving was dangerous? Who taught you that paying was lost? Who taught you that the moment money left your hand, you should mourn like it died? Because whoever they were, they trained you into rebellion. Rebellion not against man, but against law. Because law never once told you to fear. Law never said, pause before releasing. Law never said, feel bad when you circulate. Those were human teachings, emotion-based, trauma-colored, generationally compounded. And every time you obeyed them, you ignored the higher command. You chose loyalty to the lineage of fear over fidelity to the kingdom of law. You are not cursed because they trained you. You are cursed because you repeated it without questioning. You are cursed because you allowed culture to speak louder than covenant. And I am not asking you to judge them. I am asking you to override them. Because as long as their voice is louder than yours, your money will obey the wrong master. Let me show you what that looks like. You sit down to pay a bill. You've done your affirmations. You've spoken about divine supply. But the moment the number appears, your shoulders tense. Your tone drops. You whisper something like, let's just get this over with. And in that moment, whose voice is that? It's not yours. It's not the law's. It's your mother's, your father's, your mentors. 1,000 accumulated echoes surfacing in one breath and stealing your authority at the very gate of circulation. I told you to speak supply, not repeat scarcity. I told you to command, not comply. And yet most of you still speak as trained children, not sovereign adults. You handle money like it might punish you. You approach the bill like it might explode. You whisper your transactions like you're ashamed. That is not reverence. That is residue. And until you cleanse your tone of that residue, the law will treat you as one who is not yet ready to receive. Because the law, though divine, is sensitive to energy. It doesn't judge, but it does respond. And it responds not to what you say in front of people, but what you mutter in the moment of release. The bill doesn't hear your affirmations. The transaction doesn't remember your vision board, but the law remembers the exact frequency of the sentence you didn't even say aloud. I'm afraid this won't come back. And where did you learn that thought? Who installed it like code beneath your conscious speech? That's who must be exiled. That's who must be revoked. Because if their training remains unchallenged, your flow will remain uneven. You'll keep saying, I'm spiritual, but spending like a slave. You'll keep declaring abundance, but tensing like a pauper. And the law, never fooled, will obey the deeper truth. The one you perform, not the one you post. So I tell you again, break the agreement, break the lineage, break the echo. Do not carry forward what cursed the generation before you. They may have survived through fear, but you were not born to survive. You were born to command. You were not born to delay until you have enough. You were born to speak enough into form. You were not born to flinch when the rent is due. You were born to bless it with the same voice that calls supply from the unseen. The bill is not your enemy, it is your mirror. And the one who fears the mirror does not fear the cost. They fear being exposed as one who never believed the supply was real. And I am here to tear that lie apart. Your voice must now become louder than theirs. The one who trained you must now be replaced. And the only way to do that is to speak as the law, even when you still feel like the child. Before you release the money, release the fear. Before you confirm the payment, confirm the law. Before your hand moves, your mouth must move first. Because in the kingdom of law, the mouth governs the moment, and no transaction should ever happen without your voice authorizing it. Not the voice of culture, not the voice of memory, not the voice of the total. Your voice as spiritual jurisdiction. I told you, your money does not obey your emotions. It obeys your command, and yet many of you keep releasing money without sealing it first. You pay, then panic. You transfer, then tighten. You give, but without sending a voice ahead of it. That is spiritual negligence. That is unauthorized movement in the realm of substance. The law doesn't honor unsealed payment. It doesn't honor silent giving. It only honors spoken obedience. So let me tell you what to say. Before the finger taps send, before the card hits the reader, before the check is signed, you say, I do not pay in fear. I pay in faith. I pay under grace, and this payment multiplies my flow. Say it again. I do not pay in fear. I pay in faith. I pay under grace, and this payment multiplies my flow. Once more, slower. I do not pay in fear. I pay in faith. I pay under grace, and this payment multiplies my flow. You must train your tongue to precede your hand. You must teach your body to follow the voice of authority, not habit. You have been conditioned to release money like it's leaking, like it's something that must be done. But you are not here to complete tasks. You are here to command atmosphere. Every bill is a door, and the words you say before you open it decide what walks through. Do not whisper apologies to your balance sheet. Speak rulership. Do not cringe while confirming a payment. Speak jurisdiction. Do not sigh and submit. Command and proceed. You must learn to interrupt the default reaction, because default is programmed, and what's programmed is not spiritual. What's spiritual must be chosen, declared, embodied, and that begins not when the money leaves, but before. There is a war happening in the second before the payment. That's where the battlefield is. That's when the old pattern tries to speak first. This is too much. I don't want to lose this. What if it doesn't come back? That voice is fast, cunning, and quiet. And if you don't have your decree ready, you'll obey the old reflex. You'll send the payment and send the curse with it. That's why I don't just teach truth, I teach replacement. You cannot just silence fear. You must speak something stronger. You must place a louder law in its place. So every time you're about to give, no matter how small the amount, your voice must lead the procession. Like a king entering a room, the voice must go before the action. Train it like a ritual. Put it in your notes. Write it on your wallet. Repeat it in your car before rent is due. Whisper it in the restroom before checkout. I don't care how awkward it feels. I care how aligned it is. Because the law only listens to alignment, not convenience. And if you forget, then pause. Don't pay yet. Speak first. Align first. Bless it first. Because the blessing is not in the amount. It's in the alignment. The blessing is not in what you give. It's in how you speak it forth. Do not confuse spiritual rhythm with habit. This is not habit. This is rulership. A queen doesn't hand over gold while muttering about loss. She doesn't flinch when she gives. She speaks, declares, blesses, and then moves. Why? Because her voice sanctifies the transaction, and you must do the same. And don't you dare call this unnecessary. I have watched too many people undo months of prayer with one careless transaction. They think the moment of giving is mechanical. But law watches closely. Law records the tone. Law memorizes the frequency. And if you release money with your mouth closed and your heart clenched, you've just signed a spiritual order to block return. Silent giving is not noble. It is negligent. It leaves the door unguarded. It hands over your authority with no witness, no seal, no fire. In the courts of spirit, your silence is not peace, it is abandonment. An abandoned energy collects dust. It doesn't return. It sits in limbo, waiting for clarity. That's why so many of your good deeds seem unrewarded. It wasn't the act, it was the tone. It wasn't the generosity, it was the jurisdiction. Let me say this plainly. The law does not return unsealed circulation. If your voice didn't go before it, then your authority did not authorize it. And if you did not authorize it, the law has no reason to respond. Stop treating money like it belongs to the bank. It belongs to the spiritual system of obedience. It is a symbol of flow. And when you give it without speech, you declare that you don't understand what you're holding. The spiritual world is not casual. It is coded. It is legal. Every moment is either a prayer or a reversal. There is no neutral gesture. And if you do not bless the payment, you delay the return. Period. And so I tell you again, I do not pay in fear. I pay in faith. I pay under grace. And this payment multiplies my flow. And I'll go further. Don't just say it aloud. Write it in the memo. Write it in your comment. Anchor it into matter. Bind the word to the act. Speak it, type it, sign it, comment it below. Let the very motion of releasing be married to the motion of commanding. Why? Because the tongue is the only thing that makes money spiritual. Without your decree, the act is secular. It is forgettable. It is dead. But with the word, it is law. It is movement. It is multiplication. And the law, being perfect, will return to you what you declared, not what you feared. You think you're being quiet when you pay, but in the realm of law, nothing is ever silent. Every sigh is a sentence. Every shrug is a statement. Every muttered, "This is too much," is not just a feeling, it's a command. And the law, being perfect, does not argue. It does not interpret. It does not hesitate. It obeys. I told you before, your emotions don't confuse the law, but your voice directs it. And if you direct it in fear, in fatigue, in frustration, then you are not participating in divine circulation. You are initiating spiritual disruption. You don't think paying a bill can block your supply, but let me tell you what the law hears when you pay wrongly. It hears hesitation and registers delay. It hears sarcasm and registers disrespect. It hears panic and registers disqualification. It hears lack and records it as truth. And the worst part? You didn't even mean it. You didn't consciously choose it, but you spoke it anyway. Because your mouth has not yet been trained to speak with dominion, and your reflexes have not yet been reprogrammed to match your declarations. So you affirm one thing in the morning and undo it by noon. You declare abundance in your journal, but whisper, "I'm barely hanging on," while checking your balance. You visualize overflow, then mumble, "Please don't bounce," when sending a payment. And what does the law hear? Not your vision board, not your best intentions. It hears what you speak in real time, under pressure, when you think no one is listening. That's what governs your flow. Let me show you exactly how these silent errors create spiritual blocks. When you say, "This is taking everything I have," the law doesn't hear exhaustion. It hears finality. It hears there is no more after this. So it stops the river because you just confessed you've reached the end. When you say, "I hope I can make it through the month," the law doesn't hear hope. It hears hesitation. It hears a refusal to operate under divine sufficiency. So it withholds, waiting for certainty. When you say, "Why is everything so expensive?" you think you're making a social comment, but the law hears, "My supply can't handle this realm," and it shrinks your world accordingly. This is not superstition. This is jurisdiction. You have been given authority to legislate your environment with your word. And every careless word you release during an act of payment becomes law the moment it leaves your lips. Even worse, the law does not forget. While your conscious mind moves on, the law stores the vibration. It records the tone, catalogs the energy, and waits for the corresponding outcome to deliver. So you wonder why payments feel harder next month, why flow gets slower, why unexpected charges show up. It's not random. It's recall. The law is fulfilling a command you issued with your own voice. Just because you weren't aware doesn't mean you weren't responsible. You see, the law doesn't accept emotional disclaimers. It doesn't pause and say, "Oh, she was just tired." It doesn't say, "He didn't really mean that." It doesn't decode your intent. It enforces your statement. And if your statement says, "I'm depleted," then so be it. If your tone says, "This is unfair," then so be it. If your eyes roll while you press send, the law receives that eye roll as a signal of spiritual contradiction. That's why I told you, before you pay anything, speak. Because if you don't speak intentionally, the fear will speak for you. If you don't direct the law, the habit will. And habit is often fear in disguise. Fear pretending to be realism. Fear pretending to be modesty. Fear pretending to be just being careful. Let me be very clear. The law is not sentimental. It is lawful. It does not operate in gray zones. It follows the voice. So stop treating your tone like decoration. It is doctrine. Stop calling your sarcasm harmless. It is poison. Stop treating your complaints as venting. They are programming. You are not just reacting when you pay in frustration. You are programming your pipeline. You are writing instructions into the atmosphere. You are laying bricks along the path your supply must walk back on. And every time you lay those bricks in the pattern of fear, your provision gets lost trying to find you. So what does the law hear when you pay wrongly? It hears contradiction. You say, "I believe in infinite supply," but the sound of your voice says otherwise. It hears a double-minded commander. And the law, which cannot divide itself, pauses until the contradiction is resolved. This is why some of you feel like your faith works only in waves. You affirm and get results, and then it dries up. You give and receive, and then it shuts off. It's not the law failing. It's the law responding accurately to a fragmented broadcast. You are asking with clarity and canceling with confusion. Let me ask you plainly, what's the last thing the law heard from you during payment? Was it a command or a complaint? Was it a testimony of trust or a tremble of doubt? Was it spoken from a place of rulership or resignation? You think you're being normal, but the kingdom doesn't operate under normal. It operates under command. And if your command is contaminated, the results must reflect that contamination. So here is the decree you must install from now on, every time your hand moves. My voice governs this payment. My tone aligns with supply. I pay under law, not under pressure. I speak as one who receives as easily as I release, and what I give returns multiplied, in rhythm, in grace, and in jurisdiction. Say it, comment it, type it, embed it in the act. Because unless the act is spoken for, it is up for interpretation. And the law does not interpret, it enforces. If you want your money to return aligned, your mouth must send it aligned. Otherwise, you're not giving, you're scattering, you're not paying, you're pleading. And pleading never built the temple, command did. And the law, being perfect, still waits for the voice who knows it. If you are still afraid to pay, it means there is an unbroken agreement somewhere in your system. A contract made long ago, not with money, but with fear. A sentence repeated too many times. A thought spoken under stress. A pattern inherited from a trembling voice in childhood. Somewhere along the line, you signed it. You said yes. You agreed to treat bills as punishment, giving as loss, payment as proof of lack. And every time you pay in fear, you renew that contract. But today, I give you the authority to break it. You are not here to be good with money. You are here to be sovereign with voice. You are not here to track pennies. You are here to direct substance. You are not here to be polite to poverty. You are here to revoke its legal right to speak through you. And that begins not in mindset, but in mouth set. What you say before you pay determines what pays you back. What you comment now seals the decision you've delayed for years. So I ask you directly, will you keep speaking as one who serves debt? Or will you speak now as one who rules above it? Because let me be clear, debt is not just a number. It is a tone, a posture, a sound. And it is your tone, your posture, your sound that either echoes the old agreement or breaks it forever. You say you want overflow, but your tongue still shakes when you pay. You say you believe in grace, but your shoulders still fold when the invoice arrives. You say you are divine, but your comment section is still silent, waiting for someone else to go first. Not anymore. Not under this law. Not after hearing this word. You must speak now, not just for money to obey, but for your mouth to remember who it truly belongs to. Let me tell you the real truth. You were never in lack. You were in rehearsal, rehearsing fear, rehearsing smallness, rehearsing the lines that were handed to you by voices that never met the law. And every payment you made in silence, in panic, in automatic obedience was not obedience to spirit. It was obedience to a spell. And that spell is broken when you comment. No, not just any comment. Not an emoji. Not a thanks. Not a passive echo. A legal interruption. A direct override. A verbal revocation of the spiritual passivity you inherited. Because the comment is not just for visibility. It is a verbal trigger point, a courtroom entry, a place of documentation that says to the atmosphere, I remember now. I no longer pay as a slave. I pay as one who speaks before they release. This is not about convincing the algorithm. It is about retraining your field. Your voice print must be recorded in the record of your own life. Because until you see yourself speak as authority, you will keep living like authority belongs to someone else. And debt will keep speaking for you. Not because you owe, but because you never interrupted it. You never rose up in the very moment of paying to declare something holy. You never laid your sentence across the currency like a seal. So now, speak this in the comment below, out loud, typed, and with your full spiritual authority. I do not pay in fear, I pay in faith. I pay under grace. I break all old agreements with debt and lack. I speak as a vessel of divine circulation, and I authorize the law to return what I release, multiplied, sealed, and sanctified. Say it again. I do not pay in fear, I pay in faith. I pay under grace. I break all old agreements with debt and lack. I speak as a vessel of divine circulation, and I authorize the law to return what I release, multiplied, sealed, and sanctified. Type it. Own it. Don't comment like a child asking for help. Comment like a priest signing a decree. Comment like a queen restoring her right to rule. Comment like one who just burned the last agreement with the creditor spirit and walked out free, not because the balance cleared, but because the voice finally did. This is not motivation. This is legal instruction. You are not trying to get ahead. You are returning to the throne where you always belonged. And no spirit of fear, no generational echo, no subtle sarcasm, no leftover shame has any legal right to speak through your payments again. Not if you speak first. Not if you comment now. Not if you claim it not as inspiration, but as permanent protocol. You may still pay a bill tomorrow, but after today, you will never pay the same way again. You may still owe something in the world of numbers, but in the world of spirit, the agreement with lack is null and void. You have spoken, you have sealed, you have issued a command that the law cannot ignore. So I ask you, what does the law hear now? It hears your name, it hears your jurisdiction, it hears your return, because you didn't just break the contract, you replaced it with a voice. And that voice is law.